Good afternoon, Grace family. Happy to be here with you, taking a look at Ecclesiastes chapter 6. And I just realized my is a little off centered. There we go. Now I can actually see a little better. So I should always look at the camera before you start. But anyways, that happens to just about everyone who does any live streaming. And if you do that, you're familiar. But anyways, looking at Ecclesiastes chapter 6, we're going to look at verses 1 through 18. You'll keep the whole section today. And we'll be taking a look specifically at kind of the echo of what we began in chapter 5. We're going to finish it in chapter 6, and then we're going to go into kind of a conclusion and a frustration that exists in the preacher, Koheleth. And then from there, we're going to talk a little bit about how we can answer that as New Testament Christians. So let's go ahead and take a look at the text. Starting in Ecclesiastes chapter 6, verse 1. There is an evil that I have seen under the sun, and it lies heavy on mankind. A man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of all that he desires. Yet God does not give him the power to enjoy them, but a stranger enjoys them. This is vanity. It is a grievous evil. If a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with life's good things, and he has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is still better off than he. For it comes in vanity and goes in darkness, and in darkness its name is covered. Moreover, it has not seen the sun nor known anything, yet it finds rest rather than he. Even though he should live 1,000 years twice over, yet enjoy no good, do not all go to one place. All the toil of man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. For what advantage has the wise man over the fool? What does the poor man have who knows how to conduct himself before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. This is also a vanity and a striving after the wind. Whatever has come to be has already been named. It is known what man is, and that he is not able to dispute with one stronger than he. The more words, the more vanity. And what is the advantage to man? For who knows what the good for a man while he lives the few days of his vain life, which he passes like a shadow? For who can tell man what will be after him under the sun? And that is the conclusion of chapter 6. As I said, chapter 6 kind of begins with a little bit of an echo of what is said in chapter 5. And it's important for you to see the structure. And so I try not to do too many structural components because that can be long and sometimes arduous in a 15-minute, 20-minute increment like this. But this one's at least a little bit helpful, I think, in order to get you to see kind of this chiasm that exists, the step pyramid in this particular structure. This particular author has given an example, which I think is particularly helpful. And he shows you that his first point, Koheleth's first point, is that the love of money is a sad investment. And we saw that in chapter 5, 8 through 12. And then 2a, his second point, is that the love of money is a bad investment. Not only is it a sad investment, but it's a bad investment, and that he saw in chapter 5, verses 13 through 17. We addressed that yesterday. He concluded that section, which is kind of where we stopped yesterday, with a really excellent point, which is the kind of the central point of his kind of communication, that we ultimately should trust in God, and that is a wise investment. In chapter 5, verses 18 through 20, we get that. So we're coming on the other end of this point in chapter 6, verse 3 through 6, where the love of money is a bad investment, and point 1b, the love of money is a sad investment, in chapter 6, 7, verses 7 through 9. And so we see kind of this structure that's overlaying. Now there's other things communicated within this, but this is the overall structure that's being utilized by the author to communicate kind of the general points that he's trying to make. And so we see that specifically in the text. Where there's this echo of, what is wicked and evil. And the first thing that Koheleth actually says is that there is an evil that he has seen that is just, it's incomprehensible to him. And the evil that he specifically has seen is an individual who has been given all of the wealth, possessions, and honor, and so that he lacks nothing that he might desire. but yet he doesn't have the power to enjoy them. Now, it's interesting that Kohelet recognizes the providence of God in these things. He sees God as the one who's actively providing the wealth, the possessions, the honor, in all of the things. God gives that. But then also God gives power to enjoy them. So in the context, whether it's the person doesn't have a long life, whether the person is disabled and unable to access any of these things, whether this person has, for some reason, the inability to access these things, some sort of power. It could be any number of ways of power. It might even be life itself. He says instead that a stranger then enjoys them. And so he says that this is a vanity. It's a grief. In fact, more than it's just being a vanity, more than it being meaningless and enigmatic, it's a grievous evil. And so we have to recognize that he's not accounting to God evil, but he's accounting that if the meaning and purpose of life is found in any of those things, that it is evil that someone would have those things and not actually be able to get to meaning, which is ultimately why he says it's meaningless, it's of no value, it's a chasing after the wind, it's vanity, it's not the purpose of man. Then verse 3 says, if a man fathers 100 children and lives many years so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with life's good things, and he also has no burial, I say a stillborn child is better off than he. This is harsh. Now think about ancient societies. Ancient societies, a definition of success would be to have many children and to have a long life. Those would be two things that would be given as almost a guaranteed success in society. And so what he's saying here is he's saying, look, he has all of these things. He has hundreds of kids, and he has a long life, but his soul's never been satisfied with life's good things. And it mentions that he has no burial, which means he's not been respected or remembered by his family. So those two things, the satisfaction of the soul and the remembrance and existing beyond this mere lifespan, he says those two things, if a man has everything in life but those two things, a stillborn child is better off. A child who's never experienced life is better off. And he further explains that. He says, for it, and this is referring to the stillborn child, comes in vanity, comes in meaninglessness. Right? There's no value in a birth where a child does not get to breathe and have life. And so he says that the child goes into darkness, and in darkness its name is covered. What it is, name in Hebrew, name is everything you are. It's your definition. It's your essence. The essence of who you are is covered. It's not known. It's unknown. It's unknown. No one knows who you are. No one knows what you would have been in your life. There's nothing to define you. And so he says for that child would be better off than the one who has all of life without those things. Why? Now, verse 5, it continues, moreover, it, referring to this child, has not seen the sun nor anything, yet, this child finds rest rather than he. There's this element to which, this child who's never existed on the earth in a way that we would be able to recognize them and name them, they have found rest. But this man who's lived a full life but not enjoyed the things and didn't have burial, he has nothing. He has nothing different. And at verse 6, even though he should live 1,000 years twice over, 2,000 years, which is obviously an exorbitant amount of time, which is the intent, yet if he enjoys no good, do not all go to one place. Is he not in the same place as the stillborn child? If enjoying the good is the purpose and meaning of life, then if he's not enjoyed that, he's not experienced that, then it's for nothing. He might as well have been stillborn. Verse 7, all the toil of man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. And he goes into almost this kind of tirade of meaninglessness. And he goes, well, everything that I do, look, everything that you do today, the energy that you've expelled to a certain extent is so that you might be able to fill your appetite in a way that you'd be satisfied so that you could get up and do it again tomorrow. And if that is the fullness of life, that is meaningless. That is of no, what's the purpose? What's the value? What's behind it? If all of it is to satisfy your craving, your desire of this moment, and to work in order to satisfy those cravings and desires, then what is the meaning of life? In verse 8, for what advantage has the wise man over the fool? What does the poor man have who knows how to conduct himself before the living? I mean, what do these people have? I mean, that's great and all, but what do they have if it's all just to toil after what's in our mouth, and to satisfy ourselves, which our appetite's never being satisfied? And he says, verse 9, better it is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. Better to see what you have and to accept what you have than to continue to pursue after what you don't yet have. And he says this is also a vanity and a striving after the wind. Verse 10, he kind of continues in this, and he says, whatever has come to be has already been named. And it's known what man is, then he's not able to dispute with one stronger than he. This is the idea of when something's already been named, it's been defined. Its limits have been set. What it is known. It's sure. Its essence is there. And so if something has come to be, everything that it is already known. And who it's known by is by God. And he's not able to dispute with one stronger than he. And this is the idea that if God has set something in motion, he has named it, it is what it is, regardless of what you do. And then he says, the more words, the more vanity. What advantage is this to the man? For who knows what is good for the man while he lives his few days in a vain life? We don't know what's good. We struggle with that. We pursue what is good. We pursue what will satisfy us and what will meet the cravings of our hearts and the desires of our hearts, but we can't really know what that is. And ultimately, we pursue it under the sun with vanity because we pass like a shadow. And then he concludes this, and he says, for who can tell a man what will be after him under the sun? And this is where it comes down to, is he says, ultimately, what little bit of good life we have, even if you were to find some good, it's vain because our life is to what end? There's this pursuit that we talked about in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, where God has put eternity on the heart of man. And man desires something eternal, but who can tell a man what will be after him under the sun? What's going to happen after I exist? What about me after my life? And this is the frustration that the preacher expresses. Now, I think about this in Luke chapter 20. This is part of what Jesus is getting into, because the Sadducees, they don't believe in the resurrection. And they ask Jesus about the resurrection because they're trying to prove that there is no resurrection. And as we see in chapter 20 of Luke, verse 27, there came to him, Jesus, some Sadducees, those who deny that there's a resurrection. They asked him a question, saying, Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies having a wife but no children, the man must take his widow and raise up the offspring for his brother. Now there's this scenario where there were 7 brothers. The first took a wife and died without children. The second, the third took her, and likewise all 7 left no children and died. Afterward, the woman also died. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife will this woman be? For the 7 had her as a wife. Now, they try to put up with this situation of polygamy, which is wrong in Israel. And so Sadducees are basically taking an argument, and they're doing what's called ad absurdum. They're bringing the argument to its absurd end. And they're saying, look, obviously there's no resurrection, because if there was, who in the world is going to have this woman as a wife? And if the law is perfect and good, it's going to exist forever. And now we have an issue with the law. It's not going to work in the resurrection. And so, verse 34, Jesus answers them, and the sons of this age marry and are given in marriage, but those that are considered worthy to obtain that age to the resurrection of the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage. For they cannot die anymore, because they are equal to the angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. But that the dead are raised, even Moses shows in the passage about the bush, where he calls the Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now he's not the God of the dead, but of the living, for all live to him. And then, of course, some of the scribes answered, Teacher, you've spoken well, and they no longer dared to ask him any questions. Why do I bring up that passage? Well, because the reality is that the expression of the preacher in Ecclesiastes is this desire to know what is coming next, And he feels like there's no sufficient information been given to him in order to know what is happening next. And to a certain extent, even Christians nowadays, we struggle with knowing what will heaven be like, what will the new life be like, and we've not been given all of the information. But here's a clear example of Jesus himself saying, look, God is the God of the living, not the dead. And all live to him. That there is this life that is coming, and the dead are going to be raised, just like Moses declared. And we are going to be created equal to the angels, being sons of God and sons of resurrection. And this is something that God has promised. Furthermore, in John chapter 17, verse 20, when Jesus begins speaking, and he's praying before the Father, listen to some of the words that he says. And I'll tie this in for you. He says, I do not ask for these only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one even as we are one. I and them and you and me, that they may be perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and love them even as you love me. Father, I desire that they also, whom you have given to me, may be with me where I am, to see my glory that you have given me, because you loved me before the foundation of the world. O righteous Father, even though the world does not know you, I know you, and those that you have sent me. And these know that you have sent me. I have made known to them your name, and I will continue to make it known, that the love in which you have loved me may be in them, and I in them. Now, I want to break this down just a little bit. There's so much here we could break down, but I just want to break down this one piece for you. And in Jesus' prayer, he's praying for those who are going to be receiving the testimony of the disciples and believe in the Lord Jesus Christ because of the disciples' testimony. That counts as us today, because that's what we believe. We believe the disciples' testimony. And so he prays specifically that we all might be one. That's an element that he prays for, that they might believe, that we might believe in him. But furthermore, if you notice specifically in verse 24, he says, Father. Now this is Jesus talking to God the Father, and he says, I desire that they also, whom you have given me, we have been given to Jesus in the past perfectly, presently. That happened. We have been given. We are in Christ. That we may be with him where he is. Do you see that? Father, I desire that they also, whom you have given me, it's referring to us, Christians, those who believe, may be with me where I am. Now, that element right there is key, that we would be with Christ where he is. And this is not only presently now, but also in the future. Furthermore, he says, to see my glory that you have given me because you loved me before the foundation of the world, that we might behold the glory of the Son in fullness of who he is. And that Christ wants us to see him for who he fully is. And that's something that he will do for us. And so he then says, O righteous Father, even though the world does not know you, I know you. And these know that you have sent me. And I have made known to them your name, and I will continue to make it known, that the love with which you have loved me may be in them, and I in them. And then he will bring us to him. And that's the hope of Christians. That when Christ was raised from the dead, and he said, you will be with me. You will be with me. That's the hope, is that this resurrection that's coming, we will be with Christ as he requested of the Father, and that we will see his glory for who he is. And that's something that we can hope in, that Kohelet, the preacher, did not yet know. He should have known because there's plenty of information in the Old Testament, but he didn't know it. And he missed that, and today, don't you miss it. That's the meaning and purpose of life. That's the value. Beyond that, live, eat, and drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Well, God bless you all. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Looking forward to finishing up, looking at chapter 7 tomorrow. Take care.